This video is brought to you by Movement for Life Physical Therapy. Women's Advanced Nogi. This first division is the Absolute Division. That's me over there in the purple. My opponent and I shake hands, and the ref starts the match. We immediately start to hand fight, looking for grips and inside space. My opponent is doing a good job of being aggressive with her grips, particularly her collar tie, and so I'm trying to be proactive about making sure I'm clearing her hands off of me and getting to the grips that I want. A concept I think is really helpful when hand fighting is trying to have more hands on my opponent than they do on me. And if I can't get more hands on them than they have on me, then I'm looking to get to the inside space and dominant grips. You can see this happening in the match because we're both constantly trying to pummel our collar tie to the inside space. Here my opponent starts to dig a pretty heavy underhook, and I use that to set up my overhook and to set up my guard pull. We continue to hand fight from the guarded position. She is looking to try to keep me as flat as possible and start to posture up to try to break open my guard. I am looking to try to cut my hips out and create angles to set up my sweeps and submissions. Here I start to try to sit up to attack for a Kimura, but my opponent is doing a really good job of keeping her elbows tucked in nice and tight and making it difficult for me to attack my sub. I keep trying to look for angles with my hips and trying to open up her elbows and her arms to look for my submission attacks. My opponent is keeping her elbows in very tight and keeping her posture very low, which is making it difficult for me to set up my upper body attacks. Because her elbows are in so tight, I start to look to see if I can start to sit up and hit my hip bump sweep or set up one of my other sweeps, but again, because she's keeping her weight so low, it's making it difficult for me to off balance her. We continue to grip fight and hand fight from this position. I'm trying to be creative with the way that I'm grip fighting and opening up her elbows, and I'm not only using my hands and arms to attack her arms, I'm also using my legs to try to angle off and create openings to attack her upper body. Here my opponent starts to try to grip fight and posture up, but I'm able to break her posture back down and keep her controlled. I'm able to start to get a pretty good grip on her left arm, so I start to walk my guard up nice and high so I can start to look for my attacks. You can see I'm starting to cut an angle with my hips, and then I try to throw my right leg over her head, but she does a good job of keeping her head inside and prevents the armbar. However, I have her posture controlled pretty well from here, and so I continue to try to walk my legs up to see if I can set up either another armbar or a triangle. She squares her hips back up with me to prevent me from angling off. I start to try to sit up to hunt for my hip bump sweep, but she is doing a good job of pressuring back into me and not letting me set it up. I keep hand fighting from here, looking to isolate her arms and set up my attacks. My opponent is trying to keep her elbows and arms in tight to prevent me from attacking them and trying to start to posture up and stand to see if she can start to break open my guard. I start to get a pretty good grip on her arms, and so I start to walk my legs up nice and high to see if I can set up my armbar. When I go to cut my hips out and throw my leg over the head, she pulls her arm out, but I use it to set up my K-guard and get in on a leg entanglement. I pull her left leg across my hip into 50-50 and start to look for my inside heel hook. My opponent does the correct defense by sitting up and trying to fight my hands to prevent me from getting a bite on her heel. At some point during the scramble, her hair tie fell out of her hair and all of her hair just kind of fell down, and the ref wisely stops the match for a second so that she can fix her hair up, which I appreciate because having long hair down during a jiu-jitsu match is definitely a little bit of a safety hazard. Once my opponent ties her hair back up, he checks in on us and starts the match back. We are still in that 50-50 position. I am looking to try to get my bite on the heel while my opponent is looking to fight hands and free her leg from the entanglement. She's doing a good job of keeping her left foot hidden under her right leg in a triangle position to prevent me from being able to get a bite on the heel. She's also using her collar tie to control my posture and prevent me from getting extension on the leg. I'm looking to try to get control of her inside leg and try to get my bite on the heel so I can go back to my inside heel hook. Here I'm using my left arm to try to untangle her legs. However, my opponent's doing a really good job of maintaining a solid triangle lock and not letting me detangle her legs. Here my opponent starts to try to come up on top, but I do a good job of maintaining this grounded position. From here, we continue to hand fight. I need to make sure that I'm not leaving my own heel or leg exposed to counter leg lock attacks. One of the cons of this 50-50 position is that you can definitely kind of stall out from here because it's a little bit tricky to get heel exposure. It's kind of a neutral position because both athletes have attacks available to them. So while there are some really great inside heel hooking options from here, it can be difficult to get your offense going. We continue to hand fight and look for openings to try to set up leg attacks. My opponent starts to try to come up on top again, and I'm able to use this to create some momentum and some exposure to start to get in on her leg. You can see while she's trying to come up on top, it's leaving her leg exposed a little bit, and I'm really trying to capitalize on that exposure. I start to come up on top and am really digging for that leg, really trying to find that exposure. while still being mindful of not letting my opponent start to set up her own leg attacks. I'm finally able to start to unlock her triangle that she has with her legs that's preventing me from getting that exposure, and she's forced to sit up to try to hand fight me and prevent me from getting my extension. I'm starting to gain control of her leg, and so she's really fighting me hard to protect her heel and prevent me from setting up my inside heel hook. Here you can see she's kind of gripping onto her own leg. I'm using my left arm to try to scoop underneath her leg and collect the heel, but she's able to defend and triangle her legs once again. I decide to try to abandon the legs and start to stand up from here, but I'm not able to get all the way to my feet, and so from here we start to roll through. As I'm rolling through, I'm already trying to see if I can detangle her legs and start to hunt for my leg locks. My opponent is starting to look for some counter leg locks here, but I was pretty confident that I was going to be able to get to my positioning first. I'm able to start to detangle her legs once again, but this time, instead of trying to go for my inside heel hook, I start to bring her leg across and switch it to the other hip, bringing me to the DOA position. And from here, I'm able to get a grip on the ankle, create my extension, and get my tap to a straight ankle lock. This was a good match with a great opponent. I definitely need to work on my entanglements from 50-50 and moving through those positions more quickly, but I was glad to get the straight ankle lock finish. Moving on to match number 2, this is the finals of the women's advanced absolute division. We shake hands and the ref starts the match. We start to hand fight, looking for our ties. Again, I'm looking to try to get to inside space and have more hands on my opponent than they do on me. I also try to be cognizant of not backing up too much and keeping my weight centered in my feet so that I can't be off balanced easily. Once I get to my ties, I decide to go for my guard pull, and my opponent does a good job of putting her knee in the middle to prevent me from wrapping up my closed guard. Because I wasn't able to wrap up my closed guard, I immediately start to invert for my K guard and try to get in on my leg entanglements. My opponent is trying to keep her legs out from in between my legs to prevent me from setting up my entanglements, as well as trying to control my hips. From this inverted position, I'm trying to pull her leg towards my chest and keep it tight to my body to start to set up my entanglements, but she's doing a really good job of keeping space and not letting me get in too tight. As we keep fighting though, I'm able to start to bring her leg in tight and start to roll through and set up my saddle position. Once I'm in the saddle, I start to look for my leg entanglement opportunities, but we had kind of rolled off the mat at this point, and so the ref wisely decides to stop us, take a look at the position, and then reset us back in the middle. Once he resets us back in the middle in the same position, he starts the match, and I'm looking to try to gain control of my opponent's legs and start to wrap up my leg attacks. My opponent was doing a really good job of trying to control hands and come up on top while also trying to pull their leg back towards them to prevent me from setting up my leg attacks. We wind up in this false reap position, and so I'm looking to try to get back underneath her leg and put her back on her butt so I can finish my leg attacks, but she's doing a really good job of keeping heavy pressure on top of me so that I'm not able to do that. I have a pretty good grip on her leg, but I'm having a hard time getting to my off-balancing position because she's pressuring so heavily on my head. Even though I have a pretty good grip on the leg, I can definitely feel that we're starting to stalemate out here. So eventually I decide to abandon the leg and start to underhook her arm and come up for this modified dogfight position. From here, I'm able to start to wrestle up and come up on top and go into my opponent's guard. I really don't want to wind up in her closed guard, so I'm making sure to pressure in nice and tight on her right leg, because by using my hips and legs to keep her heel pushed in towards her butt, she's not able to get that leg free and start to wrap her legs around me. However, I'm still being mindful of my head positioning and my arm positioning and not letting my elbows get too wide, because she can still set up her attacks on her left side where the leg is free. I'm staying nice and heavy and really trying to cook my opponent with this top pressure and force her to make a mistake. I'm able to start to push her trapped leg in between my legs and advance to my half guard position. And from here, I'm looking to clear the legs fully and get to a top pinning position. I'm keeping my opponent's upper body pinned flat to the mat and looking to try to pull my leg through. But once again, we've gotten pretty far off the edge of the mat, and so once again, the ref stops the match and resets us back in the same position in the middle. Once the ref resets us back in the middle and starts the match back, I'm looking to try to get past this half guard. I'm using heavy top pressure to keep her pinned to the mat and keep her as flat as possible, because the more she's able to cut her hips out, the more likely it is that she'll be able to sweep me, versus if I'm able to keep her flat to the mat, it's much more difficult for her to sweep me and much easier for me to pass. My opponent is using her legs to try to elevate my leg that she has control over to try to either get to a sweep or start to come out and go to a wrestle up position. But as she's trying to elevate and create movement with her legs, she has to be careful not to let my leg slip free and give me the pass. From here, my opponent is able to use that elevation to start to create some space and then use that space to come up to a modified dogfight position. She's looking to try to use this position to wrestle up and get on top, but I'm using my overhook to be nice and heavy and make it more difficult for her to try to bully me back down. Because my opponent is having a hard time wrestling up and getting me down to the mat, she decides to reset into the closed guard, which is still an improvement over half guard. Even though she was able to get her closed guard back, I do not want to let up on the gas. I want to make sure that I'm keeping that top pressure going and looking to get that pass. So I'm immediately starting to hand fight, looking for opportunities to pin arms and start to separate the feet and pass the guard. Here my opponent starts to grab my ankles and starts to look for her lumberjack sweep, but I'm able to keep my balance and use this to open the guard to start to look for my pass. But my opponent does a really good job of scrambling and we wind up in this knee shield position. Because we rolled out of bounds, the ref stops the match again and resets us back in the middle. The ref resets us back in the knee shield position and starts the match back. I start using my left arm to underhook her leg and apply pressure while straddling her other leg with my legs. I'm looking to try to split the legs and use that pressure to try and pass the guard. My opponent is trying to maintain her knee shield position, but I'm doing a good job of pressuring forward and trying to continue to split the legs apart. I'm able to use my top pressure to maintain this position and continue to advance forward. And I'm able to progress back into this top half guard position by flattening her out and moving past her knee line. I know I'm starting to get somewhat short on time, so I'm really looking to try to get to a scoring position or to get a sub. I'm using my underhooks and my head pressure and positioning to maintain really good top pressure and making sure that I'm making it difficult for her to create that hip movement and try to regain her guard. While I'm keeping my opponent's upper body pinned to the mat, I'm looking to try to free my left leg from the guard and fully pass. My opponent is using her arms to try to frame and create space, but I'm doing a really good job of keeping my position nice and tight. I'm really focused on using that upper body pin and pressure to make it as uncomfortable as possible for my opponent while trying to slide my leg through. My opponent is doing a really good job of staying tight on my leg though and preventing me from being able to slide through to either mount or side control. I keep pressuring forward with slow, consistent pressure, making sure that I'm keeping her elbows elevated and making it so that it's difficult for her to start to try to get onto her side and try to sweep me or get to a wrestle up position. I'm doing a good job of keeping her flat and continuing to kill those frames with her arms and not let her have any space. My opponent is trying to use her left arm to underhook my far leg, but she can't really do anything with it without first getting her right side underhook underneath my arm, and I'm doing a good job of keeping that arm elevated. Because she's not able to get her right side underhook underneath my arm, she's having a difficult time getting up onto her side and trying to elevate me, so she abandons that left side underhook underneath my leg and starts looking to try to frame once again. From this position, I've cut my hips off to the side and I'm able to start to try to weave my leg out from in between her legs. And my opponent tries to start to turn to her right side to try to regain that leg back, but as she does this, she starts to expose her back. This is good for me because I'm having a really hard time getting a pass, and so I'm really wanting to get a score or sub before time runs out, and so I immediately start looking to set up my grips and set up my chair sit to the back. I'm keeping my chest pressured behind her back and looking to try to rotate her to my opposite side so that I can throw my other hook in and get my back take. My opponent is trying to wiggle free, but I'm able to get my grips and rotate her and throw my opposite hook in for a scoring back position. But it wound up not even mattering because I was able to immediately throw in my rear naked choke as soon as I got to the back, and I was able to finish this match with a submission. This was a really fun, scrappy match against a really good opponent, and I was really excited to win the Absolute division. Next up, I have the Women's Advanced Middleweight division. It was just me and my friend Leanne in this division, so it was going to be a best 2 matches out of 3 situation. We shake hands and the ref starts the match. Right off the bat, we are both looking for our ties and looking to start to try to set up our takedowns. Right now, I'm just kind of feeling out where she puts her weight distribution and figuring out how to get to my ties. My opponent's being pretty heavy with her collar tie, so I decide to see if I can try to shuck it off and get to my Russian, but she is doing a really good job defending and not letting me get to my 2-on-1 grips. We continue to hand fight, looking for that inside space and looking to try to get to our grips. I'm still feeling out her weight distribution, and when I feel her starting to kind of pressure into me, I decide that I want to try to go for my collar drag, which was somewhat successful, but she does a good job recovering and then tries to go for a little judo throw, but I was able to pop my head out and come up on top. Since my opponent is the one who initiated the takedown, but I'm the one that wound up on top, and I wound up on top in side control as opposed to winding up in her guard, I am awarded one advantage. I'm not able to hang on to this side control position though, because my opponent does a really good job of recovering her closed guard. I'm immediately looking to pin and control arms to prevent her from setting up her sweep. My opponent is looking to try to walk her guard up my back and try to start to attack my arms and control my posture to set up her closed guard attacks. But I'm doing a really good job of keeping my elbows in nice and tight and not allowing her to open my arms up to try to set up her arm lock attacks. I'm looking to try to hand fight and get my posture back up while also trying to look to control her arms to prevent her from setting up her attacks. My opponent is being really heavy on my head though, which is making it difficult for me to get free and get my posture back. Every time I start to posture up and look to get my pins, my opponent breaks me back down and pulls me back down into her closed guard. But again, I'm being very mindful of keeping my elbows in nice and tight and not letting her set up her closed guard attacks. From here, I'm able to start to pin her biceps to the mat, pop my head out, and posture up. Once I establish my grips, I'm able to get to my feet and start to break open my opponent's closed guard. From here, my opponent inverts to try to attack for a knee bar, but I'm able to escape this leg entanglement and then get in on my own leg entanglement and finish the match with a heel hook. This was a really fun match, and I was glad I was able to get the sub, but like I said, this division, because it's just the two of us, the matches are going to be best 2 out of 3, which means after a short break, we're going to have another match. Alright, on to match number 2, we shake hands, and the ref starts the match. We start to hand fight, looking for that inside position, and starting to set up our ties to go for our takedowns. I'm starting to look to set up my 2-on-1 grip. You can see here I get a double wrist grip, but she is able to get free of my grips. And every time I try to get back to those 2-on-1 grips, my opponent does a really good job of clearing my ties and not letting me get to what I want. My opponent seems to be looking for her collar tie, and I'm trying to make sure that I keep swimming to that inside position and not letting her hang out in those collar ties for too long. I'm also looking to keep putting that forward pressure on her and making sure that I'm controlling the center of the mat. We continue to hand fight, looking to create those openings and looking to try to set up our takedowns. I'm still trying to be aware of trying to circle to the middle and make sure that I'm constantly giving forward pressure without giving too much forward pressure and off balancing myself. Because my opponent is being so heavy with her collar tie, I'm looking to try to start to set up my Russian tie, but she's still doing a really good job of clearing any 2-on-1 grips I try to establish. From here, it kind of seems like my opponent is trying to use her collar tie to snap me down a little bit and then use that momentum to set up her takedowns. Here you can see she starts to drag heavy on that collar tie and then tries to shoot in on my leg. Because she's being so heavy on the collar tie, I decide to pull guard to see if I can throw up a quick armbar, but she does a really good job defending, and we wind up on the ground in guard. Right now, I'm not able to wrap up my full guard because my opponent is smashing in nice and tight on my far leg, so I'm looking to see if I can start to set up an attack by opening up her left elbow and attacking that arm. My opponent starts to posture up, and I use it as an opportunity to start to set up my straight arm lock on the arm that I'm already attacking, as well as regain my closed guard. I have a decent enough bite on this arm lock that my opponent has to defend, and I'm able to use it to set up my triangle. I don't have it fully locked in yet, but I do have the head and the arm isolated, and then I'm able to use that to set up my figure 4 lock and establish my triangle choke. And then I'm going to be honest, we spend a good amount of time in this triangle lock, so I'm just going to skip ahead a little bit. Okay, so after rolling around for a little bit, we wind up in this sort of modified mounted triangle position. And this whole time I've been switching back and forth between attacking the choke and attacking the arm lock, and right now I am looking to separate hands and attack the arm lock. My opponent is still fighting to try to escape, but I have a really good grip on the arm at this point. And once I'm able to separate hands and start to apply pressure to the elbow, I'm able to get the tap. This was another really fun match. I had trained with my opponent a little bit in the past, and I've trained with her a bunch since this tournament. She's super sweet and she's super talented, and this was really fun. So after a total of 4 matches with 4 submission victories and 0 points scored on me, I was able to come away with a gold in the women's advanced absolute division and the women's advanced no-gi middleweight division. This was a really fun tournament because a lot of my teammates competed as well, and even a lot of my teammates who didn't compete still showed up to support the team, which I thought was awesome. And it's always just a lot more fun having a big group of people to cheer you on and to cheer on after you're done competing. Super proud of everyone who put themselves out there to show up to compete, and super appreciative of everybody who showed up to support. I also want to give a huge thank you to the sponsor of this video, Movement for Life Physical Therapy. Movement for Life Physical Therapy has been supporting me for years by keeping me healthy and on the mats doing what I love. If you need physical therapy, be sure to check the link in the description box to find a location near you. Thanks for watching!